Great finds today. I got in a Sega Dreamcast. This is a system that was literally ahead of its time. And it failed. I'll tell you why I think it failed. But, first of all, I think this system was probably too far ahead of its time. How could that be possible? Well, we'll talk about it. First of all, this is the system here. It's a Sega Dreamcast. It does play the DVD-style games, the disc games. It's pretty simple. There's not too much to it. There you go, Sega. You had 4 controllers. This is the controller here. Your memory card would go in here. You also had a rumble pack, which I think are essential on all video game systems now. I did turn it on. The graphics on this particular system were way ahead of their time. This looks better than anything that was out at the time. This is a football game. If you weren't really watching, you would think this is a real football game. But it's a cool system, and graphics didn't hurt it because it was better than anything that was out at the time. It did play the disc, and there is something else that I think it was ahead of its time, but it also hurt it. It also has, if you look right back here, was the first one to come with a built-in, yes, a built-in 56K modem. So you could go on the internet. Now, today you wouldn't imagine that you can't even play some games without the internet. Some are online only. But they were a little ahead of their time because they had some online gameplay, but they overestimated the availability of broadband internet access in 1999. Yeah. So there was a lot of people that didn't have access to it, so they couldn't play it. So you probably wouldn't buy it if you can't play those particular online games. There's not a need or something pressing like that. Now, marketing. Marketing also, I think, really hurt this system. Sega, I don't know who Sega thinks they are. I don't think they're competition with Nintendo or PlayStation. They never really figured it out. But some genius over at Sega said, what can we come up with to make this very catchy? You know, what can people think about when they're, going to buy a system? Their slogan for the Sega Dreamcast was, it's thinking. I don't even know what that means. It's thinking. What, the light's on? Is that going to make you buy something? I don't think so. This will make you buy it. That will not make you buy it. So it's thinking. It didn't really... Well, obviously it failed. That's probably another reason it failed. But, hey, we can't go back in time. So this is actually an EA Sports game. This is another reason it probably failed. And this was probably a decision that you can't hang the modem on them, but you can hang the games on them. This is Sega Sports Nfl 2K. Of course, that is the great Randy Moss from the Marshall University and, of course, the Minnesota Vikings, as well as other teams. Hall of Famer, great player. Now, you can see here, you can see the different players. There's Jerome Bettis on the back from the Pittsburgh Steelers out of Mackenzie High School in Detroit, Michigan. Now, people were used to playing Madden. You could play Madden on pretty much any system there was. Nintendo to Xbox to PlayStation, you can still play them. People were used to Madden and the other sports game by EA. EA wanted an exclusive contract. And Sega said no. That was probably not a smart decision in hindsight, because as we know, hindsight is 20/20. So they came out with their own games. People weren't as excited to play. They did like the graphics, but maybe not. They would wait for EA Sports to come out in the new PlayStation. But so that really hurt it. The other thing that they hurt that they probably could address is PlayStation. You could play DVDs on. Now you may say, who cares, right? DVD players aren't that expensive, and who even plays DVDs anymore? Well, back in 1999, DVD players were extremely expensive. They were kind of like a luxury item. They had just come out, and they cost probably as much as a system. So you could justify buying a game system if it had a DVD player, and that's what they did with a lot of times with PlayStation. Hey, honey, I got you a DVD player. It happens to play video games. Hey, who's going to argue with that? So, but Sega did not address it. You have to address things that the public wants, or they'll go somewhere else where someone's going to give them what they want. Now, here's the controller. The controller, they didn't address some things with the controller. What do I mean? Well, I will show you. The size. First of all, the size of the controller is a little big. This is the original Xbox controller. It is bigger, but people complained about this. It's too big. It's too bulky. Xbox addressed that and came out with a smaller one. They never came out with a smaller one. You can see this is a PlayStation 3, which is they really haven't changed the size of these. You can see it's about half the size. It's half the size. This is Xbox 360 actually, and that's almost half the size. But what is the real difference? Can you see the real difference in here to here? Well, it's these analog sticks. There's 2 analog sticks with Sony, there's 2 with the Xbox, and you won't find a gaming system without the 2 analog sticks. Now, why? Because those are huge for especially first-person shooter games, which first-person shooters are huge in the video game market. And so they never addressed that. So there's only one here. They kept one, and they never addressed that there. And Sega liked to ditch things pretty early. They came out with Game Gear, wasn't that good? Never developed it. They came out with Sega CD, and then they hurried up and came out with Sega Saturn. You couldn't play both games on both systems. And then they came out with the Dreamcast, and you couldn't play any of those games. And then Sega, less than 2 years, had ditched this particular system. So they kind of gave up a little early. I think it was the greatest system when it came out. It probably influenced a lot of the games now. You can't imagine not having the internet or DVD access on any game system right now. So they helped out the game system. Sega's still around. They did not go out of business. They decided just to be a third-party developer. So they will develop games for PlayStation and Xbox. So you can still play Sonic. And you can play it on different systems, which is great. And because we all love Sonic, who doesn't love hedgehogs? But it comes down to what is this worth. Now, there's a lot of these available. Now, Sega Dreamcast, they are getting rarer because they weren't around that long. They also, didn't sell as many copies. So supply and demand would tell you that, with video game market going up and up, and if they've collected all the systems, they're starting to want the Sega Dreamcast. Because it's actually a game system you can play, and it is actually fun. And so this Dreamcast, what do you think this Dreamcast would be worth? These Dreamcasts, you could probably get $80 to $100, which is great for a system. And some of the games are, getting up there, and there's not a lot of games to collect. So if you wanted to collect and get all the games, this would probably be one of the systems you would choose. But this is still $100 for an older game system. You can see it works. It does have, the plug is great because it's just a 2-plug. The AV is, of course, is going to be specific, but the game player and the controllers and everything, and there was, the different things with the Rumble Pack that you had to buy separately, as well as the memory card. But the Sega Dreamcast, I loved it. I think it was great. I wish they would have waited a little more and addressed a few more things literally ahead of its time. I think it quit a little bit too early. And if you could go back in time, I think if they addressed a few things, they may still be around. They probably would have done that exclusive with EA, and you would have developed more games and maybe put an analog stick in here. But unfortunately, there's not a time machine. We can't do that, because if they did, I'd get in it and tell myself, go buy some Bitcoin. Buy as many as you can. But if you have one, let me know. I would like it. And speaking of likes, if you could like this video, I would appreciate it. So that's Great Finds for today. Thanks again.